The 19th century English Catholic historian, politician, and writer, Lord Acton, famously said, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." In Canadian society, police have a great deal of power. Now, the vast majority of them exercise that in a very professional and appropriate manner, but nevertheless, it is entirely appropriate to hold them accountable when they abuse that power. That's why this week on Don't Talk TV, I'm going to talk about a case that's very quickly gained notoriety from Barrie, Ontario. Hello, my name's Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a criminal defense lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, and this is Don't Talk TV. On February the 4th of 2021, a young man named Skyler Kent was riding his skateboard in Barrie, Ontario. He went through a red light at Barrie's 5 Stars and was pulled over by police. After about a 20 to 30 minute interaction, he was issued a ticket for running the red light and allowed to carry on his way. Now, unfortunately, he made the decision to yell some names, likely some profanity at the police, as he was leaving. By his own admission, he said, quote, "I'm not going to act as if I didn't have a mouth on me," unquote. As a result of this, the police put on their lights again, then apparently drove in front of him and slammed on the brakes, causing him to crash into the police cruiser, and then this happened.
20.
You're 20?
Right now, or I'm lighting you up.
Just do what he says, man.
My hand into the ground.
You can't put your hand behind your head?
My hand's behind my back, man.
Roll on your stomach.
Roll on your
What are you doing, man? What the? Don't hurt him. Don't hurt him. Dude, he's using excessive force. I got it all. This needs to stop! Why?
Get back, or you're going in.
I got it all. Just please don't touch me.
Now, there's a fair bit that can be said about the violent manner of the arrest, the striking of an individual in the head with a taser, but before I get into that, I want to talk about the arrest itself. It would appear that what happened here is the police arrested this young man under the auspices of causing a disturbance contrary to the criminal code. Now, this is something I've seen with increasing regularity since COVID-19 started. Granted, that's anecdotal, and maybe other lawyers haven't been seeing this, but it's something that certainly struck me, that there seems to be this idea that police can arrest individuals just for the people being disrespectful or rude towards them. Now, certainly, my advice to clients always, as a lawyer and just as a regular Canadian, is be polite, be respectful to police. They're human beings, they have a difficult job, it's simply the right thing to do. However, that doesn't mean that it's a crime to swear or mouth off at police or be disrespectful to them. And the Ontario Court of Appeal has very clearly laid this out in a number of cases. Now, I think it's important to just firstly consider what is the definition of causing a disturbance in the criminal code. Section 175 sub 1A of the criminal code states that everyone commits an offense who, quote, "not being in a dwelling house causes a disturbance in or near a public place, 1. by fighting, screaming, shouting, swearing, singing, or using insulting or obscene language," unquote. Now, the Supreme Court of Canada has defined what it means to cause a disturbance in or near a public place. In terms of a criminal caused disturbance, it's not merely causing emotional disturbance. It has to rise to the level of interfering with the public use of a place. So taking that definition from the Supreme Court of Canada, I just want to mention 2 cases from the Ontario Court of Appeal. The first is the case of Her Majesty the Queen and Swinkles, a 2010 decision. In that case states at paragraph 18, quote, "Generally speaking, the trial jurisprudence has held that shouting obscenities at police officers is not a disturbance in and of itself." A little bit more recently, the Court of Appeal in Her Majesty the Queen and Krukamiller, a 2014 decision, looked at a situation where there had been a fire, firefighters attended, there was a large group of young people who'd apparently been drinking, things started getting out of hand, someone's dad showed up on an ATV, he was driving drunk, and he was arrested. The accused went on a loud, angry, and profane tirade against the police. He was arrested and charged with causing a disturbance. So this went up to the Ontario Court of Appeal, and the Ontario Court of Appeal looked at this test. So firstly, an individual has to commit one of the enumerated acts. So having a profane tirade would fall under the shouting or swearing. But then they looked at that aspect of, was there an interference with the public use of the place? And the court found in that case there was no evidence that the accused person's conduct interfered with the public's use of that area. So now let's look at the case of Mr. Kent in Barrie. Is yelling at police after being issued a ticket and being upset about getting that ticket interfering in any way with the public's use of that road? I don't see how that could possibly be the case. However, as in many cases I've seen lately, the police officers seem to think that this was a disturbance, and moreover, he's obviously very angry about being insulted. Now, no one likes being insulted, but when you're an individual vested with the powers that police have in carrying deadly weapons with the authority to use them in ways that regular citizens aren't, you need to be much more circumspect and much more under control of your temper. And in my view, a person with anger management issues probably shouldn't have those weapons, as we see in this video. So there's parallels between this case and another arrest breakdown that I've done, that of Ocean Weisblad in episode 2 of Don't Talk TV. So first of all, we have the issue of whether this arrest is arbitrary or not. As I've indicated before, Section 9 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects individuals from arbitrary detention. I would argue that this is an arbitrary detention because he's not arrestable for breaching the peace. He didn't cause a disturbance, therefore it's improper for police to be arresting this young man for causing a disturbance because that crime simply has not been committed. Now, in addition to the right to not be arbitrarily detained, people have the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, as enshrined in Section 7 of the Charter. And security of the person means not getting beaten. It requires police to conduct an arrest in a reasonable manner. So I would zero in on two parts of this arrest. So first we have this section where the officer is pinning this young man to the ground, clearly has him pinned with his full weight, and is ordering him to put his arms behind his back. That's impossible for this young person to do. Then the officer puts the taser to him, tells him to roll over onto his back, again, which he can't do because he's pinned down by this officer, and threatens, "I'm gonna light you up." Then he takes it to the next level, and he strikes this young man with the taser. Some people are saying it looks like he does a karate chop. To me, it looks like he's pistol whipping him with the taser, and in fact the taser goes flying out of his hand. He hits him with such force. This is not in keeping with any use of force manual that I'm aware of. I would suggest that this is certainly excessive use of force. It's completely unreasonable use of force because it's ostensibly being used upon this young man to force him to comply under circumstances where he can't comply with what he's being ordered to do. Then the coup de grace gets delivered, where a second officer comes in, they violently throw this man onto his stomach, and then the officer appears to punch him in the head or smash his face into the ground in some fashion, which, watching the video, I see no reason why that needs to be done. This young man hasn't fought back in any way, he hasn't thrown any punches, it hasn't even been swearing at the officer anymore, and there's certainly no suggestion that this is needed in order to gain control. And I think you can look at a bit of what goes on after the arrest is finally complete. This is sometimes referred to as post-offense conduct, and I think this shows the officer is just enraged and acting out of anger and not acting out of any attempt to effect a proper arrest. When you see him slam the door of the police cruiser and throw his arm up, and in the context of yelling at the crowd, well, you can see it on the news. So just to recap, in my view, there's an arbitrary arrest here, and then an excessive use of force, which would fall under Section 7, as I've outlined, or Section 12 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which protects citizens from cruel and unusual punishment, because that looks like what's going on here is punishment, not gaining control over an individual. As always, this video is not legal advice. If you're ever in a situation like this, I encourage you to call myself or another lawyer. My 1-855 number is below. I'll always answer the phone if I'm able, and I'm prepared to give some quick free advice if you're in an emergency situation and you're in the process of being confronted by police. I hope you found this video interesting and informative. If you have on YouTube, please consider hitting the subscribe button, or if you're watching this on Facebook, Please like and share the video.